Democratic Alliance leader John Steenhuisen has responded to the axing of Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry Andrew Whitfield by President Ramaphosa today. The DA has also convened an urgent meeting of the party's federal executive for this afternoon. The presidency says the decision was made by President Cyril Ramaphosa in terms of Section 93(1) of the Constitution.
Whitfield subsequently wrote to the president to apologize if he had caused offence. Again, he received no response. Then yesterday, months after the incident, and without a further word on it, the president unilaterally removed a DA deputy minister without even giving his largest coalition partner an opportunity to discuss it with the member or his party.
Order, honourable members.
Now, according to the president's spokesperson, this move is not part of a broader reshuffle. And there can therefore be no other conclusion to be drawn that this is a calculated assault on the second largest party in the governing coalition. But
Order, honourable members.
What makes matters worse is that this unilateral action is a result and a product of a flagrant double standard. While a DA deputy minister is removed for not getting a response to seeking permission to travel, there are members in the cabinet who are implicated in the VBS scandal and looting. There are members in the cabinet.
Order, honourable members.
Who, despite apparently misleading Parliament over an attempt to deploy corrupt cadres to CETA boards, remains in the cabinet. Serial underperformers and people implicated in state capture continue to sit around the cabinet table. Now, instead of being summarily fired, like DM Whitfield was, these ministers get an opportunity to submit a report to the president on their behaviour. In the past, even ministers who had serious public protective findings against them were merely admonished or had their pay docked. Yet a DA deputy minister is dismissed with the flimsiest of excuses. Are the people of South Africa expected to accept that fraudsters, corruption accused and Zondo accused are protected while Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield is removed? But perhaps there's something even deeper at play here. Like all DA ministers and deputy ministers, contrary to what the Honourable Tambo said, Andrew Whitfield was succeeding in his job. He had opposed the attempt to make suspect appointments to the IDC board. He was raising uncomfortable questions about the Transformation Fund and the opportunities it provides for looting. And yes, he was asking the uncomfortable questions about the Lotto Tender Award. Now, given this flagrant double standard, one is left with no choice but to conclude that hard-working DA members of the executive are fired for fighting corruption, not for committing corruption. For being good at their jobs rather than incompetent. Now, if this situation is not corrected, it will go down as the greatest political mistake in modern South African history. And so, seeing the president is now cleaning house, I would like to suggest that he sweeps in front of his own doorstep before he sweeps in front of the DA's doorstep. And so, we're calling on the president to fire those ministers and deputy ministers involved in the Zondo Commission report, involved in serious charges of corruption, and those who have been involved in recent weeks of misleading this Parliament. Because if the president is willing to remove a DA deputy minister for doing his job, but isn't prepared to move other ministers and deputy ministers for not doing theirs, that is hypocrisy of the highest form, and it cannot be brooked.
All right, we're now joined by SABC politics editor Mzwandile Mbeje in studio just to unpack some of these developments. Mzwai, a very good afternoon to you. So a lot said there by the DA leader. Let's unpack just some of his utterances. I mean, he says that this was a unilateral decision taken by President Cyril Ramaphosa and that the GNU partner was not consulted.
Yes, and I think despite the fact that we have a Government of National Unity, GNU, so we have the President who has powers granted to him by the Constitution. So when he exercises those powers, so he does that in line with the Constitution. So the Constitution is very clear in terms of who can appoint or remove the minister or the deputy minister. So that's the president. So we know that this is a GNU arrangement. Some sort of consultation does need to happen, but that's not necessarily the Constitution. And by the way, I do understand that the president did indicate to the leadership of the DA that this is what he's going to do, especially because the leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen, has said it himself that he basically undertook an unauthorized trip, and I think in his words he felt that I think the president was a bit too harsh because he now compares to what else has been happening. But this, Unati, is speaking to the broader issues within the GNU. Yes, they are working together, but these are parties that are ideologically very, very different. So for him to come this hard on his own colleagues, saying they are accused of this and that, there is an element of daring the president, but you're not going too far, just highlighting the issues, because they have an option. If they feel that perhaps what the president is doing is too gross, I mean, they can easily walk out, but I guess that's not an option. Perhaps they are leaving it to the president. But, you know, what I know is that after the first speech of the finance minister, remember? Yeah. So there were calls from the alliance that perhaps the GNU needed to be reconfigured. Hearing what John Steenhuisen is saying now, I do see that call perhaps start to rise again when the NEC meets, I think on the 12th of July. It was supposed to be next weekend, but I think it was postponed. So those will be the issues that will feed into what sort of decision. So we may not have seen the end of the reconfiguration of the GNU.
Yeah, I mean, the DA is convening this high-level meeting of the party's federal executive today. It could be happening any moment. I would imagine John Steenhuisen, who has just delivered that message, will also be, you know, partly involved somehow in those deliberations. What are we likely then to see, in light of what you're saying, in terms of the NEC also meeting in July? What are we likely to see come out of that meeting from the DA, given to the fact that in closing, you know, his statement in Parliament today, John Steenhuisen mentioned something about within the next 48 hours, almost like watch this space. We will then decide what we are going to do, whether we go it alone or not.
I think the DA is really, really caught between a rock and a hard place. I think given what they feel is being done to them, so they feel they could just easily walk out. But remember, they have a stated intention of not opening up space for the MK and the EFF. So what do you do in this situation? You feel you are not being treated fairly, but if you walk away, and then those that you don't desire will simply walk in your view. So they are really caught between the rock and a hard place. So this meeting of FedEx that is going to happen would be very crucial. But if you then listen to the speech of John Steenhuisen, I do see them perhaps encourage the president to either reverse the situation or to perhaps put in someone from the DA. Remember, the president could decide on his own what he does, because he has the prerogative to do that. Yeah.
Especially when you consider that this portfolio that Andrew Whitfield held was, well, at least it was something that was negotiated before the GNU was formed. It was a portfolio that the DA really wanted, well, as minister, of course, but then they got a deputy minister. We know, of course, that there are two deputy ministers. But the big question, of course, other people are asking now is, are we likely to possibly see a cabinet reshuffle?
I do think that some sort of a reshuffle may happen, not necessarily tomorrow, but perhaps in the coming weeks or even months. I think what will inform the president is that he's still going to go back to his party as well. As much as he's the president, he also does take a mandate from the party in terms of some of the things that he needs to do. So that's why I mentioned the NEC in 2 weeks. For me, that NEC is likely to give direction. Already, they were saying reconfigure the GNU, perhaps bring in more partners. But also that will even be more interesting because one of the partners that many were arguing for was Action SA. We saw what Action SA did yesterday.
Locally,
so the situation is very, very fluid. So, I mean, you can stand on the left today, tomorrow we are standing on the right. So it is quite interesting. Of course, this is some sort of an uncharted territory for us as the country. So we're not used to coalition politics. This is what they produce. In other countries, they collapse all the time. So how we will proceed from this, it depends on what the DA will do. But my guess is I honestly don't see them walk out. I could be wrong, but I don't think they will.
Well, they did also, vote for that report of the Standing Committee on Appropriations, on the Division of Revenue Bill. So that's also very interesting. But I would love to know what's happening on your phone. I'm sure a lot of people speaking to you from various vantage points, but we'll keep tabs with that. But thank you so much, Mzwandile Mbeje, who is our politics editor there, just giving us the lay in the land. Of course, we're monitoring that meeting, the Democratic Alliance convening that urgent meeting of the party's federal executive today.